Welcome to Slow and Steady, the podcast where you get to follow along as we build products in public. Each episode gives you an honest peek into our lives as we share our struggles, our wins, and everything in between. I'm Benedikt and I'm feeling motivated.
And I'm Benedicte. Today is April 1st. This is episode number 220 and I'm feeling impatient.
Nice. Did you have any April Fool's experiences so far?
I mean, we should have come up with something, but I guess this doesn't come out on the first. Yes, I actually got one right before recording now that I thought was pretty funny because I am part of like a car collective in Oslo.
Mhm.
So you have like a share and it's like one of the older ones where it's like it's not a profit for-profit business. It's like a collective. And they just sent an email and they were like, get rich off your shares. And they said an American investor is interested in buying everybody's share.
Ooh.
And I was like, good one. So that was one. And then one of the newspapers tried doing this is like an old one, but I don't think it's been done for a couple of years, where they say there's a sale at the wine monopoly. So we have a state-owned wine monopoly. They're the only ones that can sell liquor and wine. And every now and then a newspaper is saying that they have a sale on like special stuff. And I don't think people really go for it, but there is like, at least we heard this when we were younger, that at one time, like one of the major national newspapers, when there were really just like three major newspapers, had this as their April Fools, and people were like showing up at the wine monopoly with like cans, and I think there's something had broken so you could like get like saved free wine or something.
Funny.
So yeah. So I was like, sale at the wine, and I was like, oh yeah, of course. What about you?
I've only got to one so far, and that's by our friend of the show, Michael Christophides. He announced 6 new products today. Like, in addition to PG Mustard, he has especially like PG Ketchup for replication like issues. And
you need
PG Duster to clean auto vacuum and stuff like that. It's pretty funny.
Those are fun. Okay, next year we'll try to have something. Well, we probably won't record on first next year, but
like probably in like 2 years, this episode should be coming out on April 1st, right? Like to record Tuesdays.
If it sticks to the general,
if
it sticks to the schedule,
then we should come up with something by then. But knowing the two of us, we probably forget.
Yeah, we'll forget. So the best one I've actually seen, that was a couple of years ago, where I wouldn't say best because I was so sad when it turned out not to be true. So my friend who kind of runs like business retreats, she is the one that I plan with on Mondays and like go over my week on Fridays. We're a group that do that. And she lives on the west coast of Norway. And she wrote that she would start this like writing retreat thing where there would be like little houses on stilts in the fjord and people could like rent and come for like focus time. And I was like, yes. But
sign me up.
But then she was like, look at the date, Benedicte. Nice. I was like, okay. But because you're not allowed to build in nature like that, or like in the beach zone, or like I guess it's not beaches in Norway, but we call it beach zone, everything that's like close to the water. But they do all the time because things are, well, let's not get into that. But so I should have realized that she would never do that, but I was like, yes. And this is before AI, and she had these like beautiful photos of these like houses on the stills, and I was like,
yeah, nice. So what else has been going on?
Well, I was saying I'm impatient because I've been working on a demo for Atsera and I just really want my own future product. I'm like, why isn't it done already? Why hasn't somebody made this? So I'm working on an Atsera demo to showcase how you can get data from Airtable and then kind of filtering it and sending data, back to the client. That is only for that user. I'm creating I think I landed on Feedback Fort. So it's like a little app where people can give feedback and then other people can vote. So like a roadmap, feedback, like that kind of a product. And I'm going to make it in all kinds of tech stacks because it's just complicated enough that you like hit these annoying things. Like, okay, what if somebody submits something, but it's statically generated, and then, they submit something that should stay around, at least for them, until the site is rebuilt if you're using things like Astro, and then I'll be making one in Webflow and stuff like that. But so I started out with one that maybe was a little complicated to start with, and that was like using Airtable as a backend or a database, because we see a lot of our outside our customers using things and tools like Airtable. And I have to then, so in Astro, I've been creating these Astro actions, which are then serverless functions that you can call from your front end. And I'm like hitting these, like, what about like rate limiting? Like, how do I rate limit this Astro action? Because Airtable has like a very hard rate limit. And so I needed to kind of be cached, but that's kind of hard to do within kind of the Astro framework. It's not really made for that. So I was like, oh, if I had Galleon Gateway, I could have just sent off a request to Galleon Gateway and things would be cached, and all of the boring, annoying, just want to get it done stuff could happen over there. And then in my Astro site, I could just be like, oh, grab all feedback items and grab all votes. And then would only grab the votes for the person if I wanted that. Anyway, so I was like, oh, why haven't I made this already?
I mean, at least you want to use this. So like scratching your own itch, definitely it's not the worst ideas for coming up with products.
Yeah. And I guess I don't like need it because this is a demo, right? But I can see that, like, if somebody tried to do something similar where, they are not fully fledged developers yet. And even just, as I said, for me, like if I would needed to just set up a simple site for somebody and they wanted to have some like attendance tracking and they wanted to be able to have a backend that we don't have to code. This is essentially also what we do for We, where everything is in Airtable and there are some like annoyances around that. So I guess a little bit my own need as well. But so on a train down to visit a friend, I had like a little bit of a weekend away. I was like chatting with Claude and trying to, I had already chatted with ChatGPT quite a lot about the Galleon ID and IDs. So I kind of asked it to export a kind of high level overview, and I put that into Claude and kept chatting with Claude and then saying, what I needed. It came up with some like implementation examples. And then I was like, but how do I get this into Cursor? I don't want Claude to start from nothing. And I landed on just using Laravel with React because I know React. So just like, let's stick with it. And I downloaded that starter. And then I was like, well, how can I extend this with like all of this knowledge that I've kind of gathered while chatting with the different AIs? So I asked Claude to give me context document that I could feed into Cursor, and blew my mind. It was so good because it kind of like outlined everything that's needed, the controllers, first it gave me a project overview about like what is the goal of this project, and it's so much better at formulating it than me. And then it was like high level features, and then it created another document that was like a Laravel implementation plan. And then there was like reference code, and I just told it to skip that because I think Cursor can come up with that. But going then through this like Laravel implementation plan, I could go in and tweak the things that I was like, oh, I don't want it to be exactly like this. But I did all of this on the train, like less than, I think like an hour. So now let's see if I had time to actually play with Cursor before the next show to see if kind of this like very well-structured planned context will help me when I try to build it out in Cursor.
Yeah, nice.
I don't know Laravel, so this is
yeah.
This will be interesting.
I ranted about like agent mode and stuff like that in Copilot on the last episode. Well, basically trying to rebuild our Python library from scratch, I guess. And I gave it another try. And I was a little bit more like thorough in my prompt, just like like the initial prompt that I ranted about last week was super simple. Like, take this library, import it to Python or whatever, and that, as I told, didn't work. This time I basically told it the same thing, but got into a lot more detail, like what are the parts and what to take care of and like what to watch out for and stuff like that. And the initial version was still kind of meh. But I then spent an hour or maybe two just like going through every single file it generated and like letting it edit it, basically. Because I don't know any Python. Well, it's not a super complicated language, but still, like I lack the in-depth knowledge. And it, in the end, turned out pretty nice. In the funny enough, in the last hour or so, I also started reading documentation, like Python documentation, to better understand what it was doing and what I should tell it to do. So it sounds a little bit counterintuitive, but ultimately helped to even simplify it a little bit more, because at some point it ended up but like having like packaging set up for like two different package managers, like where you usually pick one, but it ended up using two, and I didn't realize it first until I read up on the stuff, and this is that, and this is doing this, and eventually dumbed it down quite a bit, or like simplified it quite a bit. But basically in an afternoon or a morning, I don't remember, I was able to rebuild our entire Python library and bring it up to speed with everything else we're doing, and basically implement a similar library to all the other libraries we have. And that was, in the end, pretty impressive. Sure, it didn't do it like all by itself, but I'm pretty sure I would have taken at least a day, probably two, to do all of that stuff from scratch without having AI support. So I'm warming up to it.
Warming up. But what I found now with like asking it to kind of create project documents and outlines and that part is that I also get to think about things more thoroughly before implementing. Like some of these things I wouldn't have thought about before starting to implement. And I mean, like, oh yeah. But when you see like a full plan with like, it even gave me like, database suggestion, like table structure suggestions. And then I'm like, well, that, that's probably how I would have done it too. But now that I see it all like written out and in context, it's like, maybe we don't want to do it that way. And I just have to, I'm going to read out loud from what it wrote about Galleon, the Gateway product, because I've been saying like, oh, it's a middleware. It actually used the word middleware, but I said it's like it sits between authenticating providers like etc. and no-code data sources. That's kind of what I've said. But then it added core problem being solved. And I'm like, yes. And then it says no-code data sources like Airtable often lack granular user-based access control that's affordable for small businesses. Using API keys typically grant access to all data, which creates security issues when building customer portals, etc. That should only show user-specific information. And I was like, that's a pretty good problem to solve. Like that was a good problem definition.
Yep.
So it's because it like, it's just like getting your own ideas, but then back in a different wording or as like a problem statement, because I've been coming with a solution and we all know we should have problem statements.
Yeah.
And like it's coming from a problem that I have a hard time like writing these problem kind of statements or like kind of describing it because I get so focused on the solution. So I really like that it kind of added that to this document, and then I'm going to put that into the README for in Cursor, and then I'll add. So that I thought like the project overview would be the README, and then I'll take the implementation plan and just put it in as like context. I think I can do it in different ways in Cursor. Now I'm not 100% sure how, but I have very high hopes. Like I think this, and it's also like feasible when it like showed me the reference implementation in Laravel. I was like, yeah, this is actually, I understand what it's doing. I kind of like, it's a project that I think is absolutely within my wheelhouse. Like I can, even if I don't write every letter myself, like I do understand what is happening and where the potential security threats are, and also where we might have issues. So
Right.
yeah, so I'm just very impatient. Like, this is all I want to do, but I have like work that I need to do for money, so I can't just do this. But hopefully in 2 weeks I'll have something.
Nice. Yeah, that sounds. I can see why you're impatient. Like, it feels like it's at your fingertips, right? You can almost touch it.
Yes, almost. Now it's just the only the 20% to go. That takes 100% of the
Right.
time.
Of
So
course. Yeah.
no, but I really, really like having, and then like things will then kind of be documented when you go along, because I mean, this is how everyone should do it, but none of us really do, where you kind of like document things first and then you write out the code, and then, the code and the documentation is, in sync and stuff like that. And I really think that, there's something there where, like, when I seen it with Galleon attributes that I've been working on as well, which is a way to talk to APIs from with data attributes. That it actually updates the README. Like, when I ask it to add functionality, it actually also remembers that there needs to be a documentation in the README for how to use this new functionality. And it's not, again, always spot on, but like, I often forget. Like, I'm so excited making the feature that you forget to update the README, or sometimes I can update the README and then it implements the feature. Like, I feel like it's it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, it is a lot of fun, especially if you're like, I think, as we mentioned this last week, when you remember that it can do like the boring work, right? Like adding all the tests, like adding the snippet to the README, doing the same variant of the same thing you did before and stuff like that. And yeah, it's still not that I'm like constantly using it, but like I'm starting to use it more and more. And funny enough, you mentioned rate limiting before. I that day I ran into the GitHub Copilot rate limit and was blocked for 90 minutes. It was like, nope, nah,
No,
you did too much. Like, go work on your own a little bit.
I paid for the higher plan in Cursor, because I have a client now too that where we're upgrading a fairly large React application from like React. Now I don't even remember, like React 16 to React 18, or were we on 15? Anyway, like, Cursor is such a tremendous help in that work. So I was like, just like
Right.
going through my whatever I had, and they said like they could buy me a license too, but like I don't want to have to go between 2 licenses and stuff. So I was like, okay, I can take that expense on my own. It's not that much a month to just up the limits. So, but super helpful. Still have to do a lot of manual work, but that project would have taken, it's the kind of work nobody wants to do. Upgrade from React something to React something else, and there's a next application in there, and there are packages, and there are, all of that kind of stuff. But like with that AI, I'm enjoying myself. I'm just like sitting there, like getting it to do stuff, checking its work, like sitting in the office with some nice people, just like chillaxing. It's very. Don't listen to this though. It's very hard work, dear client.
And you still have to know, like, right? You still have to know what to look for. And that
And then
takes
one
years
day,
and years and years of experience, right?
well, and then the other day it was like something it just couldn't do, and I was like, okay, I'll just do it. And it took a day to like fix that one upgrade, and but like it could help me to pinpoint things, and it's been super helpful. And I think I think for like boring stuff, like cleaning up a project like that, it's absolutely awesome.
Yeah. The other thing related to AI that I discovered today, or actually someone else mentioned it to me a couple of weeks ago, but I didn't check it out until today, is you can, on GitHub, when you create a pull request, you can request a code review from Copilot. That's pretty, like, I did not know that. Gave it a try today, and while it wasn't like revolutionary. On one pull request, it found a bug that I overlooked, and on the other, it found a couple of typos in the test descriptions. For a click of a button, that's pretty
Yeah.
nice.
And also just the overview, because if you're been working, especially me who work on different projects, like sometimes you don't remember, like if you're continuing on a draft pull request or you're just continuing on the work and then you're creating that PR, but it was like 2 weeks since you started, you might not remember everything you've
Right.
done. And then it gives you the overview, and then you're like, oh, okay, yeah, that was not supposed to be here, or oh, I did
Right.
that too. Like I've been very productive.
Yeah.
And so, but the most helpful is commit messages. I don't write commit
Right.
messages
Yeah. Yeah.
anymore.
Yeah.
It
That's
is
also helpful.
a little like sparkle button and cursor that writes commit messages.
Yep. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's nice. To be
but
honest, I still haven't. I've downloaded Cursor. I've used it a little bit, but I for some reason I always go back to VS Code. I know it's basically the same platform, and I don't know why. Like I honestly don't know.
but also like now that you have a lot of those things in Copilot, I don't know which one is better. And it's all about getting to know your tools, right?
Yeah, I think that's probably one of the bigger reasons that my VS Code setup was like configured. Like the plugins are all there, and like the settings are the way I want them to be. And sure, I could get the same stuff in Cursor, I guess, but just that, I don't know, 30 minutes of setting it up is preventing me to give it a serious go. Anyways,
but the things that AI cannot help us with yet, as it turns out, are time zone bugs.
ooh, yeah, there's no help for those.
There's no help for those. So I was so happy doing the handout. So I was working on a handout booking for We. So when people order a bike, they can just book the day that I want to pick it up after like recording to some business rules. And it worked like really well, except people started showing up 2 hours early for their appointment.
Yeah, okay. I can see what the
And
time
I
zone
was like,
issue was.
because of summertime in the States, probably, or something. But it wasn't just that. That was the reason it was 2 hours and not 1 hour. And I don't know where our servers are, but the Wii application that I inherited is a Next application where like randomly half of the stuff is server side rendered and half of the stuff is
Right,
client side rendered. Like I never really know what is when
right.
because there's just like so much a mix. But like where they booked, so the calendar that I reused had like the use client, so it was client side rendered. So when they were booking their time, they got the local time in their browser. But when they saw the confirmation page that they checked, afterwards, and also the reminders that were sent, these were obviously done on the server. And as Europeans know, or probably a lot more people know, when you work on your local machine, everything is fine and dandy because your local machine has your local time and your browser has your local time. So everything was working for me. But then when it got deployed, the servers, wherever time zone I think they were actually in the UTC time zone.
Sounds like UTC, yeah.
Yeah, because it was like 2 hours, or like, and then in 1 hour probably would have been 1 hour this week now that we also have daylight savings time. So it was an easy thing to figure out and find, but it's just like I felt so stupid because I've done this before. Forgetting that, because I was like making sure that I was like formatting it in local time. I was like doing all the things. And then I was like thinking about it, but then I just forgot that obviously my server and then server side rendering and then, your static side and
Right,
then your
right.
client side and it's in the same code and blah, 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 blah. So
Yeah,
I had a face palm emoji sent to my team I was like, yeah, that's a class. They were like, what's going on? I was like, classic time zone bug. Sorry.
Yeah, and like when you see it, it's pretty obvious, right? They're like, there we go.
No, but fixed it. It was a quick fix. But AI did not help me with this at all. Just saying.
Maybe you didn't ask the right question then.
Maybe I didn't. Maybe I didn't ask the right questions, but there are there are some things. And we have some sort of time thing bug in Outset as well, because I wake up, on the first of the month before everyone else, and I go check our like reporting pages, and it's like in a funky state until later in the day on the first. So it's like, is it part of the last month or this month? Like, it depends a little bit about what graph you're looking at and what page. But I think it's a long-standing bug, and it's like annoying, but it's not critical. So it's
right. Yeah, those are the worst, right? Those never get fixed.
And I don't think we have that many Europeans customer that way, so anyway, we'll see at some point. It has to be fixed at some point. I'll keep reporting it every first of the month and see if somebody takes the bait.
That's the way to do it. Like, just be super annoying about it. Eventually, someone will be like, "Oh, not this again."
I'll do it. I forgot to write a note about that, but I just remembered on the AI talk is that we are working in Atsera now, trying to figure out how to get our stuff into AI. So also on my task list for the next 2 weeks is to write an article on how to best or get the best out of AI when it comes to Atsera. And we've created, so all our knowledge base articles are now also rendered server side as a markdown so that we can link directly to those. So that's something we've been doing. And then, but I start, like, at least when I'm working now on Galleon, I think it's very hard to get AI to realize you're doing something like a little bit differently than it thinks or it's used to. So even when I document, I've added documentation about our event names. So you can have like Outseta on and then different events in the browser. It keeps insisting that there is an init event. We do not have an init event. It's no code initialized. And so at least for like Galleon, I'm thinking, and this is like a new thing we have to think about, right? Where I'm like, okay, I'll have to try to do try to pretend to be a user of Galleon through AI and see kind of what patterns it guesses. And then if there isn't like a really good reason for not doing it that way, I should probably have do it in that pattern so that support will be easier, because people will be using AI and asking it question about Galleon, which is a new product that it doesn't really have, a lot of info on. Say we'll guess how to use it. But that's too late for Outseta. But I think that is an interesting thing for like developer tools, especially moving forward, where it's like, okay, you might have really good reasons for doing it a different way. Maybe it's like quote unquote better, but that doesn't matter if every support request is, it doesn't work. And it's like, yes, but the event is named in it. Like it's never gonna work.
Yeah.
Or we just have to like create aliases for the different events, because it's gonna become, well, we're not there yet, but it's gonna be interesting to see. And it's gonna be interesting to see if I can actually write a document that is helpful and has the stuff that, and I think that's going to be an iterative process to make like a context document that people can copy paste and put into whatever AI tool they are using or link to. Maybe I can get some help from AI to do that.
Yeah, for sure. I think there's some there's some interesting stuff in there where like there almost needs to be like some sort of similar to like API documentation, but like AI readable, I guess, right? Like where you can just like put all of that stuff in it, but like also be sure that it's actually checking that, right? Like, because it sounds a little bit like if you just pasted like a list of event names, it will still come up with its own stuff. But maybe there will be a standard or something like that eventually.
Yeah, so we've seen that Stripe, for instance, now has like an LLM version of their docs.
They do?
I haven't looked at it, but somebody outside us said that they do, which kind of inspired our like Markdown version of our docs. And then I know that Supabase, and then I've also seen some other providers have worked pretty hard on creating really good like initial context documentation that you can add to or was it Convex, I think, which is a database. I would like bookmark some articles to read, because one of them had like a very thorough iterative process where it was like testing that the AI actually gave the same results again and again. And if it didn't, like if it was too far away from their document, like they fixed the document, and they've been like working on it so that it prompts the AI to come with a similar answer every time. Of course, they can't guarantee every time because it's not deterministic, but like it seemed like they had a very thorough process, but it seemed very time consuming as well. And we don't, have the resources as VC backed, the same resources that VC backed developer tools have. But I think even for indie hackers, it's going to be interesting to like be mindful of that side of things as well. And I saw that Pierre from Scraping Bee, like he's getting more traffic from ChatGPT now than from any of the search engines, or soon he is getting more. It's like it's getting like higher and higher and higher.
We need to look into that stuff as well. We've been tracking like traffic, of course, and then clicks from Google search and stuff like that. And I can see it's declining over the last couple of months. I'm not exactly sure if it's just because of AI tools and stuff like that. But we should spend some time looking into this and figuring out what exactly is going on there, and if there's something we can do to encourage AI to recommend user list a little bit more.
And I think also we will see declining clicks because there is like AI summaries, right? So people aren't clicking through, and it's been that way for a while, even before the AI summaries, where you had those like snippets, or I don't know what Google calls them, where they have a call out at the top where you can kind of basically get the answer without leaving Google, and that makes you lose those clicks, but it might still be a very good SEO result in a way, because if they're seeing the answer from user list and they got their answer, then that's good, for user list or etc. But you won't see that click through, so it's hard to know if it's working or not. But
interesting times.
And it's gonna be a little bit sad if there's like no way of getting any traction if you can't get like an AI to recommend you. Like I can see some pretty bad results from these trends as well. But
I'm a little bit worried about that. Like when it's just like, when the diversity of like options is like diminished, then I guess we'll be in for some rough times.
Yeah, let's end on that note.
Sure. Do you
have anything fun to share?
Not a lot of fun stuff though. I guess the most fun stuff is that we launched a lot of 1.0 versions of our libraries with transactional messages support added to them. And cool. We launched transactional messages to like in beta today, which is pretty exciting. So
nobody is going to believe that you have transactional messaging since it's
what do you
April
mean?
1st.
Oh,
if you send out emails, it's like, finally, we have support for transactional messaging.
We sent that yesterday, right? Okay. We sent that yesterday, so we're good. Well, we've been enabling for people basically today, so we should be fine about that.
You could always follow up with an email tomorrow and being like, it was not on April's Fool's Day. We do have transactional email as of yesterday.
I mean, we'll still do a public launch where we announce on socials and do make a little bit of a fuss about it. But it's nice to get some first users on it and hopefully get some feedback.
Yay!
Woohoo! Cool. Well, then let's wrap it up for today and see you around the internet.